140 million years ago. I know this is a humongous period to imagine, and that is why storytellers go with the quintessential a long, 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 long time ago. But I am a historian and a storyteller, so I must be loyal to both these huge dates and the dramatic way of saying long, long time ago. But we'll stick with the former. 140 million years ago, this mass that we stand on today, this land that we call India, the plate that we call India, was a part of a supercontinent called Gondwana. Now, this supercontinent is a part of where you would find Africa and Madagascar today. But something happened 120 million years ago. Slowly, the Indian plate started to drift, and it was drifting northwards. In the beginning, this drift was just 5 centimeters per year. But 80 million years ago, it got stronger, it got faster, 15 centimeters per year. And it kept moving and moving and moving till 50 years ago, when the Indian plate met with the Eurasian plate. And India came to occupy the place that it does today in the map. But you know what happens when plates collide? Sometimes the crusts can sink below one another. That didn't happen in this case. When the Indian plate collided with the Eurasian plate, the crusts met and they rose, forming what we call the Himalayas. But that was not all. When the Indian plate met the Eurasian plate, it started to straddle this imaginary line that we call the Tropic of Cancer. So the Tropic of Cancer is the line upon which the sun is directly overhead. And today is June 21st, and the relevance of that will just be discussed in a bit. But what happens when the sun is right above you, when the Himalaya has risen, and when India is now where it was establishing itself to be 50 million years ago? Geological factors come together to form something very interesting. The land heats up, but we are surrounded by oceans. And because we are surrounded by oceans, what is being evaporated is being pulled by the winds northwards. But it's being pulled northwards. And that is where we have the Himalayas. And when this wind comes over here, it's captured by the mountain peak. It rises, it cools down, and it releases itself in the form of what we call the monsoon. Now, why am I telling you this? Why am I beginning 140 million years ago? Well, because 65,000 years ago, when the first migrants that we can draw our ancestry to, that we can call the first Indians, they came to a land that experienced something very distinct from what we experience today. The geography was different, the ways of expression was different, the ideas were different, but a few things remained the same. They saw the same moon and the sun. They saw the change in seasons. They saw the day and night. And they felt the first drop of rain on their cheek and expressed bewilderment at the fact that this is a wonderment of nature. Baarish has been with us for a very long time. And you know, we sometimes are not able to connect with history and we think these things happened millions of years ago. How do we make sense of these people, their ideas and their stories? Well, just remember that they experienced the same longing, they experienced the same childlike wonder, they experienced the same set of joys that we do when we look at Baarish or when we feel Baarish. And today on June 21st, it's the summer solstice. It's the day when the sun is directly overhead the Tropic of Cancer. And that means the land is heating up, but the ocean is doing its job. And as we gather here today, all of us are welcoming the rainy season. Welcome to Baarish. Now, I'm an art historian, and this is a niche in history itself where it's believed that there is no future with the past, as it were. But what I'm trying to do this evening for all of you is to show you how art can become a fascinating gateway to understand how some of the emotions that we lodge within ourselves till today have been experienced throughout time. If we begin with This painting that you see on your screens right now, it is a quintessential painting of Radha and Krishna standing under a tree, protecting themselves from the storm that is brewing. Now, before we explore what this painting means, I want you to imagine that all of these tropes in medieval Indian art were an archetype of an ideal lover or a divine lover. But to express that, the artists, be it Pahadi, be it Mughal, be it Rajasthani, be it Deccani, they used their own geographical ideas, their own artistic ideas to render feelings that they believed would be lodged universally. So when you see a painting like this of Radha and Krishna standing under a tree, covering themselves with a chadar, perhaps a different image of Krishna conjures up, different than him being Govardhanadhari, the one who held mountain Govardhan on one finger, paintings that we will also discuss as we go ahead. But this sort of lyrical sensitivity was something that was lodged in this artwork. I want to ask you all with a raise of hand, how many of you have heard the song Ghanana Ghanana? Just with a show of hands. This term, Ghanana Ghanana, this is a classical term, it's a classical rag. It is a rag that is particularly invoked to welcome the monsoon, to herald the monsoon. But it's a Gambhir rag. Gambhir means intense. And so you wonder when you look at paintings like these, where is the intensity of the rain? Because in the song, the way in which the words are leaving your lips, it is supposed to mimic the thunder, it is supposed to mimic the rumbling of the clouds, but it is also to inspire feelings of rain. The song that is sung to welcome monsoon is not only a raga, it is a celebration of yourself as a part of that moment in monsoon. And so when you see paintings like these, you have to imagine yourself as a part of this canvas. And what happened in Indian miniature paintings, the ones that we're looking at today, between the 16th to the 19th centuries, is that artists started to personify how rags would look. So you can imagine Tansen in Akbar's court singing a rag, but at the same time, Akbar asking Tansen, how would this rag look? How would a Deepak rag, the rag of Agni, the rag of fire look? How would rag Malhar, rag Megh, how would they look? And thus they got personified. They became Ragaputras and Ragapatnis, sons and wives of ragas. And so as we look at the paintings that I have for you today, you will immerse yourself in a world of ragas personified, of Nayakas longing, and of Radha and Krishna under the trees. If you could go to the next slide. Here you see a quintessential type of a cloud. And why these clouds are essential for you to remember would be revealed to you as we keep on going ahead. But these are the clouds in miniature art that herald the beginning of this season. And the moment they come in, the Nayaks and the Nayakas, that is the heroes and the heroines of our painting traditions, they know that the rain is about to come. And with that, the peacocks will come out. And once the peacocks come out, well, you will inevitably be reminded of your lovers. Because in a lot of traditions across South Asia, birds, peacocks, animals become messengers. And they are in place for you when your lover isn't. And so as we look at more paintings of Nayakas looking up at the skies, looking at the clouds, they're reminded that there is somebody waiting for them, and the peacock aids this encounter. If you could go to the next slide, and the next slide. Moving on. This heroine over here, she is called the Madhu Madhavi Ragini. Madhu, honey. Madhu Madhavi, as sweet as honey. Ragini, a wife of a raga. The Madhu Madhavi Ragini paintings are an archetype that personify the wife of monsoon, as it were, Rag Malhar. And what's happening in this painting is that the Ragini has come out of her house and she is looking up. What is she looking up at? Let's see that in the next slide. She is looking up at the clouds that we just looked at in the previous painting. But at the same time, you would notice that there is this particular streak in the skies. This is the thunder. But the lightning that you see is formed in a particular way. It's formed to depict snakes and serpents. And why is that would become relevant as we move on and see the other paintings. Here you see the peacock right on the tree. That peacock has come to tell the Ragini that, it's about to rain. Look up. The thunder is here. The clouds are here. What are you going to do? And if we move on from here, you would see yet again the birds playing both the role of heralding the season but also becoming messengers. And in the next slide, you will see the Madhu Madhavi Ragini in direct conversation with the peacock. At this point, she is doing something interesting. Either she is taking out her jewelry and feeding it to the peacock, because that's one of the archetypes in which something that is shiny and glittery is an offering to the bird that has given you a message. It's not food, but it's a way of showing the bird that, you have come to tell me about the lover, and I am going to gift you this little ornament from myself so that you remember that each time it rains, you have to come and remind me. If we move on from here, yet again you see in this painting that there are those serpentine-like lightning. Why is that happening? Why is this necessary? Well, our story goes back to the Natya Shastra of Bharata Muni. In that ancient text, you have the 8 types of heroines, the 8 Nayakas, the Ashtanayaka. And there are different kinds, There is the Vipralabdha Nayaka. This Nayaka is deceived by her lover. So she had told her lover that I will meet you at this time, on this date, in this location. He doesn't turn up. And this is not the time when you can ask somebody via text what time are they going to come at. So you have to leave a message behind for your lover that you did not come. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand in this forest and I'm going to make a little bower, a little flower pit, and I'm going to leave all my jewelry in it. So that when you come back and you see, you will know that I came for you, but you never showed up. But then there is the Abhisarika Nayaka, which is relevant for our discussion this evening. If we go to the next slide, this is the heroine Abhisarika. Abhisarika means the one who braves the night. When we look at paintings, we forget that these are visual stories that are to be read. They're not to be seen in silos. So a lot of people, when they see the painting of the Madhu Madhavi Ragini, or they see the painting of the Abhisarika Nayaka, they're not able to make the correlation. But the Abhisarika Nayaka was the Madhu Madhavi Ragini before she left her house. When the peacocks told her that it's about to rain and she looks up, she realizes that she must brave the forest to meet her beloved. And this painting of the Abhisarika Nayaka is an archetype in which you see in the middle of the night, she decides to leave her house, come to the forest, and even encounter ghosts and ghouls. And these ghosts and ghouls in these paintings are not scaring her away. They're just reassuring and checking. They're asking, are you sure? It's raining. It's the middle of the night. Are you sure you want to go right now? And the way in which she looks back at this ghoul, almost unfazed, she has made up her mind. In the next slide, you will see the snakes. And these are the snakes that were warnings in the painting of the Madhu Madhavi Ragini. When she looked up at the sky and she saw lightning in the shape of snakes, this was what was being resembled. There was a hint of both that you must go, but also making her question her decision. There will be snakes on the way. There will be ghosts. There will be lightning. But she says that she is going to brave it all and move ahead. In the next slide, you see yet again the same clouds forming, and at this time the rain is just about to fall. So by the time she reaches the place of her beloved, she is going to be completely drenched in rain. But why would she do that? Well, because we are talking about a time when there were texts that prescribed what is to be done when your lover comes to you drenched in rain. When she reaches the house of a beloved, the beloved is going to have a fresh piece of garment, ornament, clothing ready. It's going to be there on the bed with a box of pan, a pandani, and he will say, you know, I knew you were going to do this. In the next slide, we see another Abhisarika Nayaka. And you see her in the next slide among the same serpents. And moving on, the same warning signals. But she goes ahead. She moves on, and that is what captures the first essence of monsoon: longing, desire, making the decision, or also being in that liminal space of, should I do it or should I not? Where in the case of the Abhisarika Nayaka and the Madhumadhavi Ragini, we see her making the decision very bravely. In the next slide, we reverse the roles, and this is one of my favorite paintings. It comes from Megh. It's by this artist called Chopra. Now, this is a rendezvous. It's basically the middle of the night, but instead of the lovers being provoked and lured in by the monsoon to brave the forest, they decide that they are going to meet in the palace where everybody else is. Because they have realized that the rest of the people in the palace don't really have a very intense, active, romantic situation going on. And hence, they will all be sleeping. And in that slumber, I am going to go out, and I am going to go and raise myself to the top and meet my Nayaka. Now, why I really like this painting is because yet again you see the same symbols of the clouds forming, of the rain about to come, which is a hint of why this began in the first place. But why I also like is because the artist has made sure that they show what is going on in the other quarters of the palace. So in the next slide, you see in the distance a town at slumber. In the next slide, you see a close-up of the Nayak going up, trying to meet his Nayaka. But you see right over there, in this particular quarter, the Nayaka is asleep. There is another princess at home. There are also attendants. But you can clearly see that she is blissfully unaware of this clandestine affair taking place right outside the palace quarters. In the next slide, the people who were employed to make sure that no lover comes in the rain are all asleep. Nobody is there to guard the doors. And so you see the Nayak braving this moment, braving the weather, and coming to meet her lover in this particular season. In the next slide, this is the close-up of the Nayaka asleep, waiting for this affair to be over, and in the morning for her attendants to tell her what happened the previous night. Moving on, this is a close-up of the Nayak. And why I particularly enjoy this painting is because the only people, not even people, the only audiences to this particular moment are the animals that are lined up. You would see animals in the distance even gazing up, gawking, and almost rooting for this affair to take place. So the only people awake to witness this rendezvous are the animals in this painting. And this goes back to our idea of animals being messengers, animals being a part of the entire equation that is being formed. You see, when we look at Indian art, South Asian art, you cannot separate it from the sensitivity and the lyricism of everyday life. For example, if you were to step out in the forest in certain paintings, you are also in that moment a yaksha or a yakshi, which is a nature spirit. And so your ornaments will also be given by the pala trees. Everything that you are doing in that moment is related to nature. It's related to the animals that surround you. And that is what you see so wonderfully portrayed in these paintings. In the next slide, this is a very famous story of Krishna. Krishna as Govardhanadhari. Now, the story goes that Krishna was very young and he was in Vrindavan. The villagers had yet again assembled to worship Indra, the god of the rains. And this was because, well, they believed that the god of the rains comes, blesses us, gives us so much bounty, and so we must worship him. Krishna, very little at that time, goes up to his villagers and asks, why must you worship Indra, the god of the rains? when it is the hill that is giving you everything. Because the hill is your space for vegetation. It is where your food comes from. It is where your animals graze. So instead of looking up and worshipping the god of the rains, why don't you look down and worship the hill itself? However, what happens because of this is Indra gets upset. This had become a ritual, an annual ritual. He knew that the people of Gokul, the people of Vrindavan would assemble and they would worship him each year to make sure that monsoon comes that year. But the one year it stopped. And so Indra did what he does best. He sent torrential storms. It was rain after rain after rain. And then the story goes that Krishna, and in this painting he has of course grown up, because in a lot of our South Asian traditions you will see in paintings, even though there were stories that took place in childhood, the archetype would continue throughout lives. And you would get a name on the basis of that. So the name that Krishna would get is Govardhanadhari, the one who held up Govardhan. So he goes and he holds up Govardhan, and the entire village assembles below the particular hill to save themselves from the rain. And this becomes a way in which the rain also causes terror. But it is to show that there is always going to be divine intervention in the form of Krishna who will come and save you from that rain. In the next slide, you can see the top. All of these animals that are grazing the hill is that hill that has been risen by Krishna. In the next slide, this painting again. And why it's necessary to look at the painting of Govardhanadhari and Krishna and Radha is because the artists are trying to evoke the same sentiment of Hill Govardhan, but they replace it with this sensitive chadar. And so in this particular painting, the idea remains the same, that this divine power has the strength to raise up Govardhan. But when it's raining, for his lover, he's also going to imbibe that sensitivity, that delicacy, that sense of charisma to just lift up this chadar and wait for the rain to stop. Until the time the rain will stop, they will gaze into each other's eyes. So all of these paintings possess both the power to invoke divine strength, but at the same time, ideas of being gentle, ideas of taking it sensitively. And the problem is that nowadays we have these very strong ideas of what it means to show strength. But paintings like these show you that strength can be shown in myriad ways. And being delicate and sensitive is one of them. In the next slide, this entire geography that was captured by these paintings. We talk a lot about European art and perspective, and that is very necessary because especially after we began trading, especially after we had European encounters and paintings from the Renaissance coming to the Indian courts, we did see our perspectives getting better. But what you see in paintings from these schools, from Rajasthan, from the Mughal atelier, and from the Pahadi ateliers, is an attempt to show the layers in geography. So even though it's not perspective how you would imagine it, where you are able to look all the way back, you are able to still broaden the canvas and look at least till a certain amount and see how the painter was able to capture that sense of a geographical expanse in which everything, the hills in the distance, the hills nearby, flora and fauna, an entire hillscape and landscape combined with the clouds is able to show the intensity of the movement. Yet again linked with the rags that we talk about, yet again linked with that intensity of the rain and thunderstorm. In the next slide, this is the foreground of the same painting. This is what you have the closest to you, in which yet again you see a scene of animals grazing and Krishna and Radha and their gopis overseeing this entire movement. Moving on, what we began with. Now, this particular painting, you would think it's Krishna, and you would be right. But there are layers yet again. You see, in Indian art, we have archetypes. We have a certain type of a nayak, a hero, or an idea that keeps getting replicated. So what you see on your screen right now is actually the personification of the rag Megh. This is the rag that invokes the monsoon and allows it to come in. So when you see in the next slide, all of these clouds, they are being summoned by the rag. And what is the story here also? You've heard of Tansen? You know who Tansen is? Tansen at Akbar's court was once asked to sing Rag Deepak, which is the rag that is to invoke Agni. And as he kept on going, he started to burn up himself. It got so humid and hot in that room that all of the singers had to assemble around him and had to start singing the rag Megh, Megh Malhar, so that it starts to rain at some point or it starts to become a little cooler than previously. And finally, that's how Tansen was cooled down. So in paintings like these, this is a summoning of the clouds. In that moment, it is hopeful, it is renewal, it is energetic. But sometimes, it is also a tremor. It is also dangerous. And we see that in the next painting. There is a legend of art history whom we lost about a year ago, Professor B.N. Goswami. And he had done wonderful work on this artist called Manaku. Manaku, Nayan Sukh, these are all painters from a Pahadi school, Kangra, Guler. And just by looking at a select few paintings, Professor B.N. Goswami was able to publish tomes on these artists. This is one painting from that family. What's happening here? When Professor B.N. Goswami would look at this painting, he would talk about how the clouds are swirling and within them, darkness is being born. And if you complement these particular paintings with texts like the Bhagavata Purana, you would get a sense of what's happening. So these are very obviously clouds of rumbling, clouds of terror and tremor, clouds of thunder, and you see these demons coming out of them, with these razor tooth nails and jaws, and they're ready to launch on you. What's happening here? Well, our story goes back to Vishnu. You see, in a previous lifetime, there was a man called Hiranyaksha, a demon called Hiranyaksha. That demon used to be the doorkeeper of Vishnu. And one day there were a set of munis that had come to meet Vishnu. And Hiranyaksha, in his previous life, did not let them in. Because of that, they cursed him. They said, in your next life, you are going to be born to Diti. You are going to have a twin brother, Hiranyakashap, and you are going to be born as a demon. And so, when the next life does come, this demon is born. And he is born with his twin brother. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashap are born together to Diti. And in the Bhagavad Purana, there is a story that goes that when these twins were born, there was rumbling in the clouds, there were signs of terror all around. People were running helter-skelter. There were children going to their mothers and saying, we want to stay home. There was an entire moment of intensity. And this was complemented with the earth being submerged by the weight of heavenly mountains. And in that moment, Vishnu, he took up the avatar of Varaha, the boar avatar, and he decided that he's going to go to the oceans and he is going to bring out earth from there. And while he was busy with that, you had Hiranyaksha wanting a fight. Now he's born as a demon, so it's in him. He wants to fight with everybody. So first he goes out and he looks for a able match. He goes to the gods and he says, I am Hiranyaksha and I was told in my previous life that I'd be a demon now, and well, now I'm a demon, so fight me. And all these gods are saying that, when you were born with your brother, there was so much intensity and terror, we won't fight you. And so Hiranyaksha decides that he's going to go in the waters. He's going to go to the ocean. And he's going to challenge Varuna, the god of the waters. And he says that, you fight me. Because nobody on land and nobody in heaven is ready to do this for me. And as you know, the earth has been submerged in the oceans. You seem to be an able warrior. Varuna, though terrified, maintains his composure and says to him, I have a perfect match for you. Vishnu, in his boar form, is currently busy saving the earth from beneath the ocean, but I'm sure he'll spare a few minutes for you to fight with you. So you may go down in the ocean and you may find him trying to save earth, but in that moment you can challenge him. And so he goes in the ocean and he challenges him. And in this particular painting, that is the form of Vishnu. And he has a golden mace that is risen in his hand. What you see in the background are all these ghosts and daityas and asuras and even torrential rainfall with the serpents. Now, these are literal serpents. Remember when we talked in the beginning of the Madhu Madhavi Ragini and the Abhisarika Nayaka and the serpent like thundering in the skies and the serpents in the forest? This is a literal rendition of serpents falling from the sky. And that is because Hiranyaksha had made use of Maya, the goddess of illusion, and created this scenario for him. But in the next slide, as you see all of these asuras and demons and snakes and bones and stones and intense rainfall sent to combat Vishnu, you will see a scene in which they are finally battling each other. In the next slide, this is the battle. And what is necessary here is for you to see the background yet again. You see those swirls? Yet again, Professor B.N. Goswami would look at these paintings and he would say that if you cut a tree, you would see the same spirals and you would be reminded of life. This is, of course, a representation of Hiranyaksha and Vishnu fighting in the oceans. But it is also against the backdrop of a painting that you possibly can't understand. Something beyond our comprehension. And this will become important as we keep on looking at more paintings like these. In the next slide, you see on the top, gods looking at this battle. You can spot Varuna, but you can also spot Brahma. You can spot Brahma because of his multiple faces. Now in this painting, it is quite obvious that what is taking place against these waters. But what happens when these waters are against a backdrop or in front of an object that you can't understand? In the next painting, one of my favorites. It is an absolutely stunning piece of work. Until the time you don't understand the story, you may see it with a sense of simplicity. But there is truly something to this. This is the Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb. You see, when the texts were being written in which ideas like the Hiranyagarbha were lodged, you saw ancient humans dealing with the same kind of questions that we do. A sense of existentialism, a sense of where do we come from, where do we go, and what is the origin of it all. So there is a particular sukta, a Nasadiya sukta from the Rig Veda that I'm going to read because it is going to be in complement of this particular painting. The Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb, is supposed to be floating in these cosmic waters. And in these paintings, our idea of the monsoon changes to something that is more beyond our comprehension. And that is why this sukta from the Rig Veda is relevant. It goes, at that time, there was neither non-existence nor existence then, neither the realm of space nor the sky which is beyond. What stirred? Where? In whose protection? There was neither death nor immortality then, no distinguishing sign of night or of day. That one breath, windless by its own impulse. Older than that, there was nothing beyond. Darkness there was at first, but darkness was hidden by darkness. Without any distinctive marks, This all was water. And this is what you see the painter depicting. This all was water. It was this cosmic ocean, the cosmic waters. That which, becoming by the void, was covered, that one by force of heat came into being. Who really knows? Who will here proclaim it? The Sukta is asking, who really knows the truth of existence? Who truly knows, gave birth to everything that we witness today? Gods came afterwards with the creation of this universe. Who then knows where it has arisen? Whether he created it or whether he did not. He who is the overseer in the highest heaven, he knows, and it ends beautifully. Or maybe even he does not. It's a question that when I look up and I say, well, at the end of the day, sab sambhala jayega, Rab rakha. It's also a question. Does he know? In the next painting, terror is not only caused by existentialism, but also the elders of your house. And I wanted to end on a lighter note with some of these paintings, because this is yet again the Madhu Madhavi Ragini prototype. But what you see in this painting is an elder standing right there, and she is dragging the Nayaka in, and she is saying, well, what do you think you are doing? And she's trying to explain to her, Mama, can't you see? Look up at the sky. Next slide, please. Look up at the sky. The birds are here. The clouds are here. So inevitably, I have to go to my lover. But the mother is there to hold her back in, and she says, today is not the day that you're going to become the Abhisarika Nayaka. I'm sorry, you stay at home tonight and maybe wait for the weathers to get better. In the next slide, I want you to notice the skirt. Now, this is also very important, and as we're inching closer, I want you all to imagine how much sensitivity went into rendering these artworks. This skirt is transparent for the gods. Its transparency, if you imagine in real life, would be like wearing a cloud around you. This is muslin. And muslin was all the rage back in the day. And you may wonder, why is this relevant for our conversation on monsoon? Why does fashion feature in this? Well, it's because the way in which the ancients and the medievals fashioned themselves, there was a sense of an understanding of wearing the season too. And muslin then becomes shabnam, evening dew, or bafthawa, that which is woven out of air. So you're quite literally wearing mist around you. You're wearing a shawl of rain around you. And that is what you see in these paintings. In the next slide, you see Shabnam yet again. This is a particular Ragini who stands in the forest, and she waits for the lover to come to the spot, but she summons animals beforehand and she sings music for them. But what I want you to notice is her shawl. In the next slide, you can see the diaphanousness of this particular garment in this painting. And you can imagine the mastery of the craftspeople who were creating these pieces. So many of them would come from Dhaka. And you would see emperors all around India vying for a piece of muslin. This was like that. In the next slide, a particular hero is teasing, is engaged in the act of teasing. And what he has done, he's actually picked up a muslin shawl and is running away and is trying to say, well, catch me if you can, and only then will you get the shawl back. In the next slide, this is a detail of the same painting, and you can see even while trying to render transparency, the craftspeople paid attention to putting motifs on the top, to imagine that at the end of the day, this was a luxurious piece of utter beauty. In the next slide, finally, they have met. We began our journey with the Madhu Madhavi Ragini, with the Abhisarika Nayaka, with Krishna and Radha standing under the rains, and we all the time teased at when will the lovers finally meet. This is one painting in which the Madhu Madhavi Ragini has finally reached the place of her beloved. The beloved is right inside. In the next slide, you can see the peacock has come along and it's begun to rain. So you can imagine the entire journey from the beginning when the peacock came and it was about to rain till the moment that she became the Abhisarika Nayaka, and finally when she reached the house. Monsoon was a part of it all. And it's relevant because when the lover asks her, it was so dark, it was raining, how did you do this? She will say, listen to me. The peacock called me. The clouds summoned me. The lightning charted my way. And you think I was alone? My love was always with me. And that is how the Ragini finally meets her lover in this weather. In the next slide, you see a detail of the Ragputra sitting in the house with her lover, but yet again wearing muslin. Because fashion has always been inclusive. It is us who have tried to create these demarcations between who can wear what. In the next slide, and moving on, we end where we began. I began with a painting of shelter. I began with a painting of Radha and Krishna hoping to protect themselves from the rain. But we end over here. The season has come. They are waiting on top of that hill, alongside all flora and fauna, the animal kingdom, various type of species spread all around. You can see that in the next slide. Everything is ready, and so are the clouds, and so are the birds, and so is the serpentine-like thundering. And what I wanted to do through this little presentation of rain and monsoon and art and love and longing is to yet again capture where we began from. 140 million years ago, when the Indian plate was drifting northwards and coming to form itself with the Eurasian plate, it did not know it was migrating. But we have always migrated. Not only humans, even continents. And as a consequence, we have experienced some of the most bewildering geological and geographical consequences. Because of that movement, because of the Tropic of Cancer, because of the formation of the hills, 65,000 years ago, the first Indians could experience the first drop of rain on their cheek, just like you and I can today. Thank you. Thanks a lot.